I think it is 12:01 or 12 o'clock according to, what does your clock say? 12, there we go. Um, So can we have the roll call, Mr. Coley, please?
Commissioner Caballero.
Here.
Commissioner Feinbaum.
Here.
Commissioner Gibson.
Here.
Commissioner Hamilton.
Here.
Commissioner Herbert.
Here.
Commissioner Simpson Brown.
Here?
Commissioner Small.
Present and accounted for.
All are present.
Very good. Can we have an approval for the minutes for May? Has everyone had an opportunity to review them?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Next, we'll have some official action from Gabe. I'm going to recognize him.
Thank you, Chair. I want to recognize Chris Hood, our Director of Finance, to give you an update on two proposed resolutions on our pension investment fund and our 401k investment fund. Chris?
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Today, I bring you proposed amendments for the investment policies for our pension plan and our 401k plan. These investment policies serve as administrative guidelines for the Retirement System Investment Committee as well as for our fund managers. The investment policies also set standards of measurement by which we can review our investments in those funds, as well as establish guidelines by which we should invest. Going to be talking to you about two actions that come to you from the Audit and Finance Committee today in the form of resolutions AF 92 and 93. We met back on May 3rd with the committee and talked about the amendments that are before you today. Just to keep in mind, the investment policies are intended to be dynamic. They are to change as the funds change and as the needs of the plan and the participants change as well. So the last time that we had amendments to these policies was back in 2020 for the 401k and 2016 for the pension. All right, so how do we get to where we are today? Really, the policy changes that are in front of you today are a result of an asset liability study that we did for our pension plan. With this, we took our investment consultant being Mercer, as well as our plan actuary being Chiron, and did a study of the outstanding liabilities of the plan and tried to marry that up with the investments in the investment portfolio. Mercer provided multiple investment scenarios. They ran thousands of iterations of it to try to basically come up with the best risk-return portfolio for KUB's pension plan. So you'll see some changes coming up, but really that's how we got to the proposal that is before you today. But how does it get to you as a board? First thing, it's got to be signed off on by both Mercer as our investment advisor and also our retirement system counsel, which is Bill Mason. At that point in time, once an idea or concept has been signed off on, it can go through the investment committee. The committee votes on that and then turns that to the president and CEO. President and CEO request that it is then presented to the board's Audit and Finance Committee. That occurred back on May 3rd. So the changes that you are seeing today have been vetted at all levels of the organization for purpose of providing it to this full board. All right, so we're going to start out.
Just for clarification, so if you go back to the next slide, the first two, the system counsel and investment advisor, those are not approvals, those are just reviews.
They reviewed the policy, so they're looking at the policy cover to cover, and they're making sure that any changes that we have made are both legally appropriate and in best practice with what the investment advisor is seeing in policies similar to ours today.
Okay.
So they are truly signing off on the changes.
Okay.
Okay. All right, so that asset liability study that I talked to you about, these are changes that impact our pension investment policies that are coming directly from those recommendations. The first of which you see three changes in asset structure. These are holdings within our pension plan. The first of which is we are looking at our REIT holdings, which is real estate investment trusts, and in order to decrease the risk of our portfolio and maintain the same level of return, we're changing that investment over to a core real estate holding. The REITs themselves are more closely correlated with the equity market. So as the equity market goes up and down, the REITs will also go up and down, more similar to an equity than actually a core real estate holding would. When we look at core real estate, what that means is that is an investment in a tangible real estate property. KUB would be buying into an investment where multiple real estate properties are held. They are geographically segregated. They are well leased properties that are producing income. So this is a diversified portfolio. The only thing that we give up in doing this is these aren't as liquid as the REITs. However, pension plan is very stable. We know what the income streams required to meet benefits are. So really only a gain here in the fact that we are de-risking the plan somewhat and making this move. Next up, you'll see our convertibles. KB holds a convertible portfolio currently. We're wanting to decrease some risk there by broadening our investment horizon. The multi-asset credit investment actually can contain convertibles. Matter of fact, we may still have about 50% of our holdings in convertibles in this multi-asset credit. However, it also contains high yield investments. It contains bank loans and secured debt. So a little bit broader investment spectrum, taking some of the risk off the table there. Next up is our fixed income portfolio. So 30% of our pension is held in fixed income. This is the defensive structure of our portfolio. We currently hold long duration, and we also hold a core fixed income investment. Currently, if you're in the long duration investment, our manager there can only invest in portfolio assets that are long duration. As it currently stands, long duration is not paying as much as short duration. So really what Mercer is advising us here to do is go to a full fixed income portfolio that can range from short-term to long-term, depending upon where the advisor sees as the best return for the portfolio. So we actually, in doing this, take a little bit of risk off the table, and we think it produces a slight bit more return. So each of these investments, Mercer advised to take in tandem with each other in order to de-risk the plan. All right, so the next item is also another feature of what are the next steps for KUB as we de-risk the pension plan. Currently, our holdings stand at 70% growth assets, 30% defensive assets. So the fixed income portfolio I just mentioned to you, that is the defensive portion of our portfolio. Over time, we need to make steps to further de-risk our plan. Just as we did with the ALM, this would be next steps. This is not today. This is setting us up for the future. So when the present value of benefits reaches 95%, which is where we've been traditionally we're at 100 or more. Over the last 4 years with the validity in the market, we've ranged anywhere from 85% to 115%. So we're bouncing around a little bit in between that, but as a whole, KUB has existed at 100% or more as far as PVB. So at some point in time in the future, when Mercer kind of advises us the parameters are right, our committee agrees, we would work to de-risk the plan somewhat. So what we're asking for here is just that next step, that we would be able to take the ratio down to 60-40 from 70-30 growth defensive. That's as far as we could go. We can't go beyond that, just to 60-40. Okay. All right. So those are the amendments from the ALM. We've got a couple other items here on the pension side that we also want to do, mainly to modernize the policy itself. We took over the pension from the city over 2 decades ago, and the document itself looks much the same. It's been amended several times, but in structure it looks very much so how we got it from the city that long ago. So we want to do some things to instigate some best practices that Mercer has with other clients. We also just want to make the document a little bit more user-friendly. If you noticed as you flip through it, some of the things that used to be written out are now in chart form. It's more user-friendly. The next thing we want to do, as I mentioned on the previous screen, as far as the shift over and de-risking the plan, we want to break it out in the policy so those growth and defensive assets are well-defined. When we go to de-risk it, everything's easily in place to make that next step. And then there's another measure that really is not something that we're suggesting, but it's something that's going on in the world around us, and it's the way that investment fund managers are meeting with the people they do investments for. Pre-pandemic, we were starting to pick up on some indicators from Mercer and some of our fund managers that most of the fund managers no longer come to the companies to meet with them. We meet with our fund managers annually, and we've done this, gosh, as long as I can remember, probably forever. That's part of the policy that states that we have to meet with them annually. One of the things that's happening is those meetings are now taking place either at the fund manager's office or at the investment manager's office, and they're inviting multiple shareholders at the same time. So this is happening around us. Nobody's indicated that they would not come to us. It's coming at some point in time. So we need to adapt our policy a little bit to where an individual from KUB would not have to be present at those meetings, even though right now I think we're still fine. So, now, Mercer, our investment advisor, would definitely be there. I mean, that's not going to change. All right, the last item is an item we actually did in our 401K a couple of years ago. We think this will help also with the risk and return spectrum, and it's the fact that our pension currently has a small cap fund manager. We have a mid cap fund manager. We want to put those two together. And really what's happening there is if you think about a small cap manager, if they have got an investment that is growing, and it may be growing out of that small cap space, they have to sell it off. They can't continue to reap the benefits of a good investment selection. So what we're asking in this is to basically have a SMID or a small cap blend with the mid cap to where if you pick a winner, you don't have to sell that winner off, or if a mid cap manager wants to go down and get somebody that's slightly below the line, they can't do it until we make this change. We've done this for 401K. We think it's a good change for the pension as well. All right, so that's pension. I'll stop there if you've got any questions specifically on pension before we go 401K.
When we change to 60-40 to get in a better defensive position, will that have to go through the investment advisor, all of that, and then come back to this board for approval?
So the only thing that we're doing is currently it would go all the way through this board for approval, which is a much longer time span to go through all the pieces.
Right.
What we're doing here is we're asking for this board's approval now to do that in the future.
Okay.
Yes, but we would go to CEO and audit and finance.
Okay.
So, but, you know, that's the next step. That's where we would head next, but it may be a little bit of time before it happens.
Okay.
On bullet point number 2 on the next slide, why wouldn't you want to be there for those meetings?
So,
Be
yeah.
there for those meetings?
I don't know that it's not that we would not want to be there. It's just that the horizon around us is changing. We could send someone, but that's the way that most managers are meeting today. So pandemic hits, we go from meeting in person to everything is Zoom or Teams meeting, that type of thing. We still meet with them that way. Our investment advisors have not been back here, but we have the same meetings. I think you'll see that option for us if it were to be the case. But as much as I would like to think that we have got the talent in the room to completely understand everything they're saying, that really occurs with our investment advisor. So I think we could still be involved. And like I said, nobody's signaled that we would not.
And Commissioner Feinbaum, if that was the case, then as Chris mentioned, we would still be in close consultation with our investment advisor. We have quarterly investment meetings with them, and so they would be bringing us up to date, even if we didn't do it beforehand.
Yeah. We speak with Mercer on a very regular basis, even beyond the quarterly meetings. Quarterly meetings are for the committee, but our retirement staff is in contact with them very regularly.
Chris, help me get corrected. So this is for the pension, which was grandfathered in from the city, and then OPEB is what we do now with existing.
So we have got 3 components of our retirement system. We've got the pension, which is a closed plan.
It's closed. Okay.
It is
that's what I was
closed,
asking.
okay? We have the OPEB, which is our post-employment benefits for pre-2010 employees, that is retiree medical. For post, it is the new HRA plan, which provides a cash benefit for purpose of healthcare expenses to employees that vest, which is 20 years and rule of 80. So, and then you've got the 401K, which is the third leg of the retirement system.
Okay. Gotcha.
Okay. All right, I'm going to move on to the 401K. So the 401K amendments in themselves are not large enough to bring this board individually. Since we're here for pension, we went ahead and did a little bit of cleanup on 401K. A couple things. Once again, modernization of the document structure to meet best practices. And really probably the other bigger things is Mercer had indicated to us that our policy looks a little bit different than most in the fact that in order for an investment to be held in our 401k, it's got to specifically be mentioned in our policy. Only the investments that are mentioned can be used in the 401k. They have reflected to us that most of their other participants list a range of investments. They do not specifically offer all those, but if they want to add an investment, they can. This is what we're doing with this flexibility. We're going to add 3 different types of investments, none of which we plan to put in our plan immediately. One is environmental social governments type holding, the other is a cash holding, and then we've also got an inflation protection security that we might add. These will not occur today, but we want to do this as well as offer passive and active possibilities within our plan for each of the holdings. Like I said, no action today. We feel pretty comfortable with where our 401k is, but we realized in discussion with them that while we're making these changes, we needed to loosen up the boundaries just a little bit with investment policy on the 401k. And then really the rest of it is just housekeeping for 401k, so pretty simple. All right, so that brings you to the resolutions before you today. There are 2 resolutions. Both come from recommendations from the Audit and Finance Committee. Resolution 1480 is an amendment to the investment policy for the pension. 1481 is a recommendation from Audit and Finance for amendment to the investment policy for 401k. And I'll turn it back over to the chair.
Thank you. So resolutions 1480 and 1481 are each before us for consideration with a motion for approval from the board's Audit and Finance Committee. Therefore, we do not need a motion or a second from this board before voting on them. Are there any comments from the board? Any other questions or comments that we want to make? Are there any members of the public who would like to address the board on these issues? Mr. Coley, will you please call the roll for the votes on Resolution 1480 and 1481 of first and final reading?
We will. First, Resolution 1480 on the pension plan, Commissioner Caballero.
Aye.
Commissioner Feinbaum. We'll catch him in a minute. Commissioner Gibson. Aye. Commissioner Hamilton.
Aye.
Commissioner Herbert.
Aye.
Commissioner Simpson Brown.
Aye.
Commissioner Small.
Aye.
Resolution 1480 has passed. Now we'll vote on 1481, which is the 401k plan. Commissioner Small.
Aye.
Commissioner Simpson Brown.
Aye.
Commissioner Herbert.
Aye.
Commissioner Hamilton.
Aye.
Commissioner Gibson. Commissioner Caballero.
Aye.
Resolution 1481 has passed as well.
Thank you. I recognize Gabe again for his president's report.
Commissioners, as you know, we're very active in educating our customers on ways to save water and energy on their bills. And one of the ways we do that is with our workshops that we've talked about before. So I want to introduce 2 folks to come up and present this. Grayson Byard, he's in our environmental stewardship group. And also say Harley Bryant, who's our customer support supervisor. They do these presentations for folks. And I wanted for you all to see a kind of a little glimpse of what that looks like. So Grayson, Harley, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gabe. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Grayson Byard. I work in environmental stewardship here at KUB. And I'm going to be talking about our energy workshops. Specifically, I'll be talking about our kids and our teen workshops that we provide here at KUB. So first up, we have our I Spy Energy Kids Workshop. We do this in partnership with Energy Right. This is very interactive and engagement-based. It's targeted for ages 5 through 12, our elementary school-aged students. You can see on the right-hand side here, we have our energy monsters. They're the mascots that kind of aid and illustrate a lot of what we go over in this presentation here. So you'll see them a lot here just momentarily. A lot of the topics that are covered are very basic: where energy comes from, how it gets to our homes through the grid, how we use energy, and more importantly, how we save energy. At the end, participants will receive an I Spy Energy Kit. It's very age appropriate. It has coloring books, stickers. We're going to hand one around now, and some interactive kind of activities that they can take home with them at school or like I said, at home. Move on here. So this workshop is presented in a format to be within a classroom. Excuse me. But a big portion of what we've done recently is in community events. So as you can see on the left-hand side here, we're at KUB's Community Expo we just had very recently. It was very popular. Down there, I was at Blessings at Bell Street, where I met Commissioner Schmall there. And most of the time when we go to these community events like Amherst Science Fair or anything like that, we'll keep these displays on the ground that I'm going to show here in a minute and allow for kind of self-exploration. The kids will like to flip switches and figure out things on their own. But up at the top there, you can see that is myself and Janae Peterson from Community Relations. We're at Knoxville Montessori School outside doing a presentation. It's very question and answer based, very interactive, kind of almost conversational, where kids can ask about a lot of the things that they see, and they love to tell stories about things that they've heard before. So this is just an example of some of the slides and animations we present in the presentation. This is Breaker. He hangs out at the step-up transformer here, and this kind of illustrates, like I said, these mascots kind of illustrate the path of the grid. You have Newton, and this is a good opportunity that I like to bring up with some of the students to give me examples. Like I said, they love to tell stories, so they love to give examples of any time they've ever seen a transmission tower or a transformer or anything like that. Get the substation, and they'll move through almost every step, and then again, here we are at the local power company. This is a great time for me to highlight what we do here at KUB as far as energy allocation and conservation, things like that. So we move further down here until eventually it reaches their home. We have another set of animations here for you. This kind of breaks down appliances and devices you might find in your home and compares them relative to each other and classifies them as high energy, medium energy, and low energy devices. And you'll see here in a second, we bring up kind of a snapshot of just a cartoonish kind of living room here where Newton is hanging out. And he has every device on in his living room possible. And so we'll ask the children, help us, Newton needs to leave, and he needs to turn off all the devices before he leaves. So they'll help us click through all these devices. You'll see like a little lightning bolt pop up there. It's yellow. That means that's that gaming console is a medium use device when it comes to energy. And so we'll click through all these different things and turn them off as he gets ready to leave. You'll see, well, we need you to turn it off. And we have a cute little animation where everything turns off and he leaves the room, and there you go. We have examples of this with bathrooms, kids' bedrooms, kitchen, and we do this kind of thing for a lot of the rooms in the house. We also have examples of this for seasonal examples. So it's like a house that's in the dead of winter or in the heat of summer, and they have every single window open in the home, and we're asking them what they can do better to conserve energy in the home. And we'll move along here. So that kind of brings me to the transition to our Energy Evolution Teen Workshop. This is brand new. We haven't presented one of these yet, but we've just kind of gone over all the content and everything. Again, it's partnered with Energy Right, and it's targeted for ages 13 through 18, our middle and high school age students. And it adds another level of introduction into energy, like environmental impacts and economic development. What's unique about this presentation is it allows for a lot of branding and marketing. So you can see on the right-hand side here, we have our KUB logo, and it even offers a couple slides where we can highlight what KUB's role is in a lot of this. Some topics covered: the history of power in the Tennessee Valley, specifically TVA, where energy comes from. We dive a lot more into turbines and power production, and how does energy consumption impact the region, kind of going back to environmental impact and economic development there. Participants will receive a home energy water kit. That's the one we hand out for our adult workshop, but I think you'll receive that when Harley talks about his portion here. So what kind of separates this the teen workshop from the kids workshop is the introduction into real life numbers. You can see TVA has provided us a power portfolio for 2005 with breakdowns and a pie chart here. And then it kind of gives us our most up-to-date numbers that they provide us in 2021. Vast difference, but a big breakdown in numbers there. And like I said, it gives us real numbers, so it gives us, percentages in carbon emissions, but especially it gives us goals and projections where we want to be in the Tennessee Valley. And that's really important for students to be able to take those numbers back to school, home, and whatever when they're thinking about energy consumption. So as you can see, this is a much more age-appropriate teenage room here than the kids' workshop. And we discuss things. This is a great opportunity to say, how do you use energy day to day? We have slides that have true or false, and we keep it very conversational, very interactive with the participants. We have slides on energy myths, things you might have heard that you think might be going on with energy conservation, things like that, but we discuss in this kind of classroom setting. So now we'll kind of move. I have some displays to show you here. Displays. We don't have teen displays, but we use these kind of in tandem with the workshop, like I mentioned before. Thank you very much. Leave this right here for you there. Okay, so first we have a demonstration of our grid here. I'll make sure we're on. And so you can see where energy is produced at the top, every way you can imagine there. And we kind of run through every step of the grid, talking about every step along the way. And I use this in tandem with the presentation. So as we're running through those animations, I can kind of light up the steps here until eventually it lights up the home. And everybody loves when the house lights up at the end. I get a lot of oohs and ahs there. So this is a great opportunity again to provide example or ask the students to provide examples where they see these structures in public. But it's also a great opportunity to demonstrate service interruptions, things like that. If we were to have a thunderstorm and something were to take out a transformer or a power line, you could clearly illustrate why power isn't making it to your home. And then obviously restoring power there. So we'll move on to the next display we have here, which is comparing devices in the home you might find. We'll usually start off with a little pop quiz. Which device do you think uses the most energy? Usually get answers like the TV or the computer. And they're all very shocked to find out it's the AC. So then we kind of move down the list here. And you got kitchen appliances, TV, computer, and lighting. So this is a great time. I use this one in tandem when we talk about high, medium, and low energy. And then for energy myths and things like that. Excuse me. This is, children all the time think because their parents tell them that you got to turn off the lights when you leave the room. This is a great time to let them know that lights are actually one of the more. I always warn people, please do not combat your parents when they tell you to turn off the lights as you're leaving the room. But yeah, so these are just 2 of the 3 displays we use. The other one is just pretty much a physical display of the room where you can flip on devices and things like that. So with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Harley. He's going to talk to you guys about adult workshops today.
Good afternoon. We started doing these in, I think the fall of 2018 and leading up. We did quite a few in 2019 before the pandemic hit and didn't get into the community quite as often. But this was obviously in conjunction with TVA as well. I guess kind of the OG version because the kids workshop and everything came after this. But there is a breakdown of where energy is used, just like with the kids workshop. What uses the most in your home? How can you save on your bills? Because obviously with the adults, we're looking more at where's that money going and how can they conserve on keeping that down. And we also have the water savings, so we'll talk about where water goes and how that impacts your bill and taking care of water leaks and things. And then we've also, even more so, look at the online portal the utility bill, how to understand the bill a little bit, so they can kind of get some introductions there. What are some things they can use to manage that a little bit better with the KUB app or whatever else we've got. At the end of that, they do receive the home energy kit for participating, and it's got a little bit more robust items inside there, things that they can actually use along with what we've showed them with the displays. So we also have, with this demonstration, before we went into pandemic, we actually had a recording of this presentation done. So we've actually been able, we were prepared when we were no longer able to go in person and do these workshops. We had a virtual version, played the video and went through all the things online, and that worked quite well for a couple of years before, and it's now starting to get back into the swing of things. So kind of like what Grayson's slide shows, here's a breakdown of where your utility usage is at. You know, if you take a $100 utility bill or $100 electric bill, this is basically where that $100 goes. About 75% of that is your heating and cooling or your water heating. So we try to focus a lot of the presentation on where can you save, what do you need to do inside your home to keep that energy usage down, or how to manage that. And so the couple slides I'm going to share with you is kind of emphasizing on that. Talking about their thermostat, what kind of different kind of thermostats are there, and on the water heater as well. What's the best temperature to have your water heater at? And it's not quite as interactive with the children's, but they do kind of put some jokes in there from time to time, like on your grocery bill, do you want ground beef or steak? Where do you want it to be? You want to have your thermostat at 60 degrees to keep it really cool, or do you want to kind of have more like 75 or 80? And then this kind of shows some comparisons when you are adjusting your thermostat, where it's at. The recommendation for the summertime is 78 degrees, and then every degree below that, it kind of shows how much of an increase that impacts on your bill. So like most of us, we're probably keeping our air conditioning around 72 or lower, so we can expect to have about an 18% higher electric bill than somebody who has theirs at 78. And then this kind of goes on to a breakdown of some of the additional slides. We talk about just once you've paid to heat your home, once you've paid to cool your home, you want to keep that energy inside. You want to keep that heat inside, keep that cool air inside. So talking about home insulation, what they can do to check on your home insulation, what levels are appropriate, how much you should have, checking on your air sealing, if you got holes in your intrusions, like in the picture here, you got intrusions where pipes and wires have come through. Those can also lead to exchanging cold air, warm air. And also, when we talk about, there's also potential for critters to come in your home. So you want to seal those up. And within the kit, it actually starts them out with some foam and some different things they can go along with that. And then we also talk about weather stripping, which we'll show in the display as well, how that can impact your home. And then we lead on. We also talked about water savings. We go on with a lot of other topics as well. So it seems to be very good. We've done probably over the last several years, 80 or more of these presentations, and we do continue to have a good feedback from folks as we do them. So, like Grayson, I will show you a couple of displays. I know mine's much quicker, shorter portion of that, but I'll show you a couple of the displays we do. There are several displays that we go throughout the presentation, and we try to break it up to so it's not just me or another presenter talking the whole time. We'll have somebody else talk about the displays in between time to break it up somewhat. So this display explains to folks about weather stripping. How important is it to have weather stripping? You got one door that's got no weather stripping at all. It's completely wide open, and you got another door that has got very robust weather stripping in it. And we kind of show some examples of the different type of weather stripping you can have on your home. And then we'll turn the fan on, and you can kind of see the impact. If you don't have proper weather stripping, you can see the airflow just coming right through your door. A lot of times in the summertime like this, you can close your door and see daylight around your door. Well, there's weather stripping needs to be added there. So we kind of explain that to customers, show them a different type of weather stripping, and also, talked about just like a 1/8 gap around your door is about the equivalent of having an 8x8 hole cut in your wall. So you don't want to have an 8x8 hole cut in your wall. You might want to put some weather stripping on as well. Another part of what we show is the wall section. This goes along with that slide a little bit, talking about intrusions in your home. When the home's built, contractors putting in pipes, putting in wires, they're doing that, getting it in as quickly as they can, and a lot of times it's a bigger hole than they need to get the pipes through easier, right? So they leave these intrusions behind, and those intrusions can also lead to an increase in airflow and heat and air exchange inside your home. And so we want to try again, keep as much of that inside your home. Keep your cool air inside in the summertime, keep your hot air inside in the wintertime because you've paid a good price to keep it in. We also focus a little bit on the outlet. These would be your outlets on your exterior walls. So when the house is built, insulation was put in, that insulation pushed aside, the outlet box was put in. And there's a place that's not necessarily insulated, so when it's cold outside, you could feel some cool air in there. So this demonstration kind of shows two things. One, it shows on your walls, so you have your wires and pipes in your walls. Maybe you just got new fiber internet put in your house, but those wires go all the way through the top plate of your house, and so that warm air can go right through your top plate, right up through your attic, or the cool air in the wintertime and summertime. And you want to keep that in. So if you keep it sealed up, you can see the ball stays down. It's all sealed, everything is staying in, that warm air is not going out or cool air is not going out with warm air coming in. This is an example on those outside outlets. You can't quite tell here because it's blowing so much, but this one has, inside those kits, there's an outlet gasket you can put behind the plate, and that plate helps prevent the air transferring. But also, sometimes those little child safety covers will also hold some of that, when there's nothing plugged in. So there's nothing plugged in here, so you're seeing a little bit of the blowing, but much more of this, it just demonstrates more of that airflow through the thing. So it definitely just gives more visuals to folks. You're looking at your bill, and man, I got this big KUB bill, how am I going to pay this bill? Or where does this bill come from? Well, here's a good example of where the bill came from. And kind of like Grayson said, putting all brand new lights in, light bulbs are getting more and more expensive anyway, but changing all your light bulbs out is going to have an impact. But the bigger impact is making sure your HVAC is up to date, making sure you're using less hot water when you can. And so we kind of just go through a lot of those topics and tips they can use to keep those down. So, y'all have any questions at all?
Do you do any of these for employers, like if they want to have a big group of their employees be educated? Is that something you've done?
We have done that for a couple of places like that, and basically we get requests from just a myriad of different places, schools and community organizations, church groups. We have a partnership with CAC, SEED, SACE, Sierra Club. We work with all these different groups, and some of that, like SEED's learned to do some of these on their own as well. So they're kind of getting out into the community even more so, and they've got their own set of these so they can go out and show how they can save on the electricity and everything.
I have a question on the same vein, but how do employers or organizations know that this is a service we provide?
Well, we are looking to actually develop some more marketing for it, but right now they can go onto our website, and on the website there's a presentations, and you can actually click request a presentation, and so things like this or our other demonstrations we have with the live line demo and other things are all, you can click on that link and kind of put your contact information in there. But as far as knowing, that is something that they're working to develop some more marketing, some mailers to put out into the community and everything.
Do we have them in any other language other than English?
The recording I mentioned, we did record that in Spanish also. So we have that in Spanish currently. And we are looking at, obviously as people are requesting those things, if there's more other language that are requested, we will assist in that as much as possible. We do have, we try to have somebody at least available that can interpret. Maybe we had one event, maybe at your place.
Centro.
Yes, El Centro, thank you. We might have had one there where we had English speaker doing the presentation, and we had somebody there to answer questions. So we try to work as much as we can, and actually in my department, we have somebody coming in that is very fluent in Spanish, and he's going to be learning these very quickly so he can get out there as well.
Thank you.
So when we have folks who utilize some of our services, particularly, with CAC and things like that, do we, have information that we can talk to them about? These are ways that you can conserve energy. Do we give them kits or things like that? Because these are folks who generally have had issues either with electricity to bill too high, and maybe to help mitigate some of that, we can use those as part of that process.
Yeah, actually, and we haven't had much since things opened back up after the pandemic, but before the pandemic, we were in there probably at least once a month, maybe twice a month, at the CAC Center on Western Avenue. And as folks were qualifying for assistance,
Right.
they were actually not necessarily requiring them, but they were saying, here, we have this presentation. So we would go through and explain to these folks how they can save on those bills as well. So here you're getting assistance, but here's what you can do to try to keep that down in the future.
Perfect. Yeah, I think that's helpful. I think, you know, as we think about the totality of how we support community, I think that might be a natural part of what we do is also, hey, because we don't want you back here, right, in 3, 6, 7 months. And so how do we help you kind of mitigate some of that through,
long
through
term.
education, long term? The other part of it, I know at some point we used to do energy audits. Is that correct? We would go out and help folks. Who's TVA did that? Okay.
And we'll explain to customers when we do this, or attendees, you know, if they want to have an in-home energy audit, it's part of the energy right system. So part of our spiel is we kind of show folks how they can go online and request that through the TVA website. And, you know, TVA will send their contractor clear result out, and they'll come inside the home. They'll look up and down and give them a list of recommendations. It's, you know, what's the most bang for your buck? Okay, yeah, you can go and get all new windows, but that new windows is only going to save you maybe 5% of your energy bill. But here's what, look at these appliances you need to change out. And that's it. So they do kind of make a top 10 list of here's the things you should do to make that better. So it's a really good resource. We try to recommend that to customers as much as possible. Even when we have interactions with them on, hey, how come my bill continues to be so high? Well, can't exactly tell you why your bill's high, but let's see if we can get somebody in there to help you see what's using most electricity.
Is the audit something that's provided through like the home uplifts? Is that for low income or is that anyone that wants an audit?
Those are for anybody.
Anyone. And I will say it's really, really thorough. I had it done years ago when it was first introduced, and they crawl all over your house, up and down in between, and found things I would never have seen to seal up and stuff like that. So I recommend it fully to anybody, but it's open to anybody that lives in the TVA service, in the service area particularly. So.
And they're very honest with you, because I had mine done
very honest.
years ago. And they speaking of this one here, they said your house is a leaky barn, Harley. So there was a lot of home sealing I had to do to keep that cool air in. So it's definitely good recommendations. But. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Board, I want to also have Herschel Hall. He's one of our chief engineers over in our water wastewater group. A few weeks ago, I notified you all about an incident that occurred on our eastern part of our system, and I've gave you updates throughout the whole progress of that project and response. And I can't say enough about how impressed I continue to be with our folks, and when a crisis like that happens, how they respond, react. And we've averted that, and I want to have Herschel give you an update on that. So Herschel Hall, appreciate you being here, and let them have any questions you have, please ask.
Yep, Gabe, thanks. I appreciate the opportunity to be here this afternoon. Kind of as has been stated, this is an exciting, challenging, unique project, and I was certainly proud to be a part of it and its successful resolution. So hopefully I can sort of talk about the timeline of how it occurred and sort of our response to it and sort of where we are today. But with that, let's jump in. On May 12th, our plants and operations staff became aware of some unusual conditions within our water distribution system. Tank levels were dropping, pressure was dropping inside the distribution system. So I knew there was an issue. That would happen somewhere between 4 and 5 a.m. About the same time, which is somewhat strange. I guess folks are used to reaching out to 911. 911 reached out to us and said, you guys have an issue out along river shores. You might want to take a look. That kind of put us on the path to understanding that we had an issue with our Boyd's Bridge river crossing. And I'll get more into that crossing during the course of the presentation. But later that morning, we also learned that a force main had failed at the very same river crossing. So not only were we experiencing a large diameter water line failure, we were experiencing a simultaneous force main failure. Either one of those is quite the calamity. We were experiencing both simultaneously. Talk a little bit about the river crossings themselves. This is Boyd's Bridge, an aerial photo of Boyd's Bridge Pike and the bridge there itself. You can see 3 lines there, yellow, blue, and green. Yellow represents gas, blue water, and green, of course, wastewater. These lines were installed late 90s, early 2000s by directional drill technology. And when I say that, they set up a drill rig on one side of the river, drilled underneath the riverbed through solid rock, and popped up on the other side. Through that hole they had drilled, they would pull the pipe back through. So they did that for water, sewer, and gas. Again, early 2000s that was installed. Pipe material was high-density polyethylene for the water and wastewater. 30-inch water pipe with a 24-inch inside diameter. The wastewater is 16-inch. Again, high-density polyethylene. I want to talk a little bit about why those lines are important. Water basically flows from our main city pump area out east and serves our East Knoxville community, East Knox County. That is one of two feeds that provides water distribution service to the East Knox area, and that's Straw Plains area, that's Forks of the River, some of our larger customers out there, Melaleuca, Pepsi, Fresenius is out there. Also, some of our wholesale customers, two of our wholesale customers also receive flows via those two 24-inch lines. Again, that 30-inch poly line, the water line, has a 24-inch inside diameter. So it's a thick pipe, it's a robust pipe. The wastewater line transports wastewater from the Forks of the River area. Again, Fresenius, Melaleuca, Pepsi flow. It is the only source of wastewater transport from Forks of the River. So half of our water lines are out and all of our wastewater lines from the Forks. So KUB's response. Underground immediately went out in the early morning hours and valved off that line to stop the leak. We established the ICS team, the incident command structure. That morning, I know that I received a call from my manager at about 5:15 alerting me, and I was wondering why the phone was ringing at that hour. Something couldn't be right. And he said, hey, I think we've lost Boyd's Bridge. And so I wanted to let you know what you're coming into this morning. So as I rolled in at 8, the room was filled and people were actively working through the scenario. We were fortunate enough to have an operational plan in our hands of how to deal with the water system should we lose that line. So we weren't flying the plane in the dark. We had some sense of how to respond. Again, we're fortunate enough to have that. I'm glad that we weren't trying to prepare that plan in real time. It was nice to have that on hand. One key feature of what we did is reach out to some of our wholesale customers, ask if they could curtail usage perhaps, make them aware of our situation, reach out to those customers. Also some of our key accounts, again, Fresenius, Pepsi, those folks out in Forks of the River, some of our larger consumers, reach out to them. So that's what we were doing on water. On wastewater, we were really left with the option of pump and haul. So in effect, we built a pipeline on wheels, which is a series of trailers and hauling equipment to haul that wastewater from Forks of the River nonstop 24 hours a day, which was quite the effort. Not only does it sound difficult, it is difficult. We immediately reached out to a contractor and a consultant to get them on board to help us with the solution. We wanted to find a contractor that has the heavy civil capabilities, working with large diameter pipe, river crossings, that type of work. Same goes with a consultant. We wanted to work with a consultant who had done similar work in the past. And I'll talk more about the folks we reached out to in this slide. You folks may be aware of Garney Construction. We reached out to them with regards to the contractor construction work. Our design consultant is Hayes and Sawyer. Both of those folks have worked on our system doing heavy civil work, including river crossings. Garney laid the force main adjacent to Calhoun's on the Tennessee River, close to town. Hayes and Sawyer has helped us out with several design projects involving river crossings. We established, as part of that team, part of that project team, we had several folks from engineering to assist with modeling efforts, determining what pipe might work from a diameter standpoint, from materials, what materials would be available. Obviously, the key concept to our project team was restoring water and sewer service as quick as possible. And we identified 3 quick alternatives. One, since the water line had failed, could we potentially use it as a casing pipe for a new line? Could, in effect, we open that line up and pull a new line through it? Of course, a smaller diameter line, but one that would at least work temporarily. If that wouldn't work, could we install either one or both of the pipes along the river bottom? That's a common occurrence to lay pipes along a river bottom. It takes a little bit longer than what it might take to run it through that existing line, but it was an option that we identified. Another option, which, to be honest, seemed like a good idea to me initially, was actually to lay a line temporarily along Boyd's Bridge itself. There's several questions associated with that. Traffic control with the bridge. How much does the water line weigh? Do you need a detailed structural analysis to determine whether or not the bridge is sufficient to hold that line? How long would the traffic control need to be in place? And of course, just the overall constructability. So we pursued as our first option using the water line as a casing. Another feature of what we did initially, reach out to some of our stakeholders. We worked with Fish and Wildlife, TVA, Corps of Engineers, TWRA, TDEC, and we involved City of Knoxville folks in our discussions about using the bridge. Again, working with, as our goal of pulling that new line through the existing line, through that 30-inch polyethylene, again, that has a 24-inch inside diameter, we installed an 18-inch pipe through it. So we had to verify that that existing line was suitable. So we tested it. I actually brought a company in, a contractor in from West Tennessee who had been working on the Blue Oval City project for Ford Motor Company. Garney actually has a large project in West Tennessee, and they were able to mobilize some of their subcontractors to come and assist us. They actually showed up on site to begin work, Garney did, on the 15th of May. Remember the problem, we became aware of the problem on the 12th, and Garney was already out there on the 15th. So we had a quick response. First step in that was testing, make sure we could use that existing line. The drilling folks went right through it and came right back, no issues with using it. So we found pipe, it also came from West Tennessee. We brought that in, fused it up, pulled it through successfully, tested it, connected it to our existing system, and by May 22nd, our installation was complete. And we were actually operational on the new water line by May 25th. Again, the problem occurred on the 12th, contractor arrived on the 15th, and up by the 25th, we were operational with the new water line. So very fortunate, in several aspects there, fortunate that we could get through that existing line, fortunate that we had a contractor, fortunate that we could get materials. So good fortune all the way through.
So Herschel, I don't want to get ahead of you, but I'm going to get ahead of you probably. If you go back to the other slide, if those two catastrophic things happened and these both were pipes that were laid around the same time and the same time kind of material,
Yep.
is it safe to say that maybe there was a defect in the material, and what did we use for the replacement pipe? Did we use same type, different type?
It's a good question, and I don't know that we'll ever know the answer as to the mechanism of failure. Mm-hmm. The best guess is, the speculation is that something occurred during the installation. Okay. I don't know whether it was somehow scratched or gouged by the rock formation as it was being pulled through, which created a weak spot, and then over time it developed into a leak, which eventually became a catastrophic failure. Mm-hmm. But there's no way to know that. But typically, and you can see the cross-section of the pipe there, it's 3 inches thick. It's a robust material. Mm-hmm. Upon looking at it, everybody questioned, how did this happen? As thick as that pipe is, how did this happen? And we even wondered if somebody was maybe in the river boring and punctured the pipe, but we couldn't find any reason as to why that would have occurred. But your question is fair. A lot of material that we use on river crossings is polyethylene. That's a common material that folks use. I'm not aware of this situation having occurred in other places. If it was a material problem, you'd think you'd hear about it more often. Right. This is the first time I'm aware of it having occurred. But that is to say, every material has its strengths and has its weaknesses. The material that we went back with certainly was poly. It's easier to work with. It's available. It allowed us to get back on our feet in quick order.
First of all, I think before you go forward, you talk about good fortune, but I think this is really a testament to really great relationships as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
Since you've been here, since I've been here on the board, I hear of how KUB goes and supports anyone in any disaster that happens across the region. And I think this is a great place where, you were able to reach out for help and folks knew that you were great partners. And so I just think that yes, there was luck, I'm sure, because there's a shortage and everything, but it's also just the ethos of the organization, I think. So congratulations on good luck and good relationships.
We are certainly fortunate to have good relations, especially in the contracting community, people that can respond, people have the capabilities and are willing to respond. So no doubt that was important.
One more question before you go forward. Since we use the existing pipe and replaced the pipe through it, we've reduced the volume. Do you see a point in the future where we might have to change what we've done because of that reduction?
Yeah, I would describe both of these lines, and as we get further into it, I'll show you what we did on the wastewater, but both of these I would consider to be temporary lines. Yeah, we would have to go back. This line, the new line, certainly meets our needs and keeps us running and operating, but most likely we would need a permanent solution, which is, a couple years down the road probably. That's a good point. Few photos of the construction itself. This is the drill rig. You've probably seen these, but this is a heavy-duty drill rig, and basically it runs a series of rods from one side of the river to the other. And it's slow, methodical, monotonous, redundant work, but that's the drill rig that was set up, and they were in and out in a hurry. I assumed they would be here a while, but they did not stay around very long. Once they pulled that pipe through, it really took them a couple hours to pull the pipe through. So once it took longer to fuse the pipe up than it did to actually get it from one side of the river to the other. But that's the drill rig itself, and you can sort of see and this is taken from the eastern bank. That's the pipe actually coming from the west side to the east. And you can see the the pulling head there on the end of the pipe. The drill rig was attached to that, and that's how it pulled it back across the river, or under the river. This is the actual tie-in work where they're connecting the new pipe to our existing pipe. Again, that's Garney's crews there in the ditch doing that tie-in work. So once we tied it in, it was a question of testing, pressure testing, disinfection, flushing, and then a return to normal sequence, and then we were back on our feet on the water side. Force main installation. Again, having discounted the bridge crossing idea, we were left with placing along the bottom of the river. So that sounds like complicated work. If you've done it a few times, maybe it's not. They were able to get that pipe installed in one day. So I'll walk you through some of the photos and what that might look like. But the biggest part of that was the acquisition of pipe, fitting, and anchor blocks. We had to have the anchor blocks fabricated locally. It took a few days for that to happen. Again, the pipe came from West Tennessee. So basically the process is you fuse the pipe together, you float it across the Holston River, you sink it, and then you test it and tie it into our existing force main. So not a long drawn out process. This is an actual weld where you've two ends of PVC pipe are in fact fused and melted together. That fusing operation has to be done at a certain temperature for a certain duration under a certain pressure. So there's a scientific approach to the fusing work that we do there. But that's two sections of poly fused together. This is as they're preparing to go from the west bank to the east. You can sort of see the anchor blocks that the pipe there is resting on there in the lower left portion. And they've also got a cap on the end of the pipe so that it doesn't fill as they're pulling it across the river. So they've got a heavy machine on this side and they've got a guy with a rope on the other. So the heavy machine lifts it and sort of pushes it out into the water, and the fellow with the rope there on the east bank just guides it toward it. I didn't think his rope was big enough, needless to say, but they knew more about it than I did. These are the anchor blocks themselves, basically two pieces that bolt together. You got a top piece and a lower piece. There they are a bit further, and you can see the machine lifting it and moving it out into the water, and again, it floats. And further across the river, still floating. Even with the anchor blocks, it still floats. It only sinks once filled with water. And so they actually filled it with river water, sunk it, and then it's ready for testing. Once it's tested, there's no disinfection on a force main. You tie it back in and you're ready to go. A little bit about project timeline. Again, the failure occurred on the 12th. The water distribution system was back to normal on the 25th, and we were able to get the force main back to normal on June 6th. So it took a bit less than a month to get us back on our feet, both with water and wastewater. Success factors, our ability to do hydraulic modeling in-house. We have our own staff, our own folks that have the capability to run the model in real time. We don't have to reach out to a consultant to get that information. We can run that modeling efforts, determine how the system will operate if we close a valve, if we take a tank out of service. We know in quick order how the system will respond to operational changes. The fact that we had an operational plan in hand when this event occurred, I can't discount the importance of that. Again, we weren't flying the plane in the dark. We had some sense of where we were going and had a plan that we could use. I like to talk about the contractor and the consultant that we had for this project. Hats off to them and the work that they did. Again, the consultant had done work like this in the past. They had relationships with the permitting agencies. They knew how to design the anchor blocks. They knew how, which is work in itself. You think it's simple to design an anchor block? Actually, they went out and looked at river flow information, river hydraulics, to actually size how big those anchor blocks are and how many you need. Communications plans with our customers. I think that was important, sort of letting our customers know where we stood, asking them if they ever helped, being transparent with them. Regulatory agencies, our relationship with TDEC. I think we have a good relationship with TDEC. We met with them midway through, again, transparent with them, shared where we were at, shared our challenges, let them know when we would be back on our feet, and I think TDEC was receptive of that. Again, Fish and Wildlife Service, TWRA, Corps of Engineers, TVA, all of those agencies were very accommodating to our needs. They understand the importance of this in that it was an emergency. Availability of contractors' materials. Again, I use the word fortunate, and I do believe we were fortunate that we had that Blue Oval City project in West Tennessee that we could draw both contractors and materials from for our benefit. Fortunately, lead times on polyethylene is not terrible, so we borrowed pipe from them, and they ordered new pipe from the factory. So they were very accommodating in that regard. We were fortunate that we could get through that existing 30-inch pipe. That really sped the project up and allowed the water system to get back on its feet that much quicker. And I think it's important to mention there were numerous KUB departments that were involved and engaged and had a lot of skin in the game in this project throughout. And that was from day one, from May 12th, all the way until we ran our back to normal plan for the wastewater system. So hats off to a lot of folks that we worked with. And I'm sincere in saying that we had great coordination and collaboration through the different departments that were engaged. So with that, I'll conclude my talk today. Questions, comments?
I just want to say one of the, a friend of mine's mother lives in the area, and she saw, I guess, all the machinery, and she says, something's going on, right? But she wasn't impacted. So that just kudos to the whole team and everybody that because they didn't skip a beat, they didn't miss anything. And that pumping of the wastewater, I just have this vision of all the hard work. That is tremendous to get that, and no one is impacted by that. So thank you for all your hard work with that.
Commissioners, I'd like to add to Herschel and a host of folks were phenomenal. And it's enough to say they were phenomenal. I'll also say that we've actually heard that TDEC is preparing an appreciation letter to us for the efforts that we did for pumping and hauling and doing the restoration. So we're expecting to get an appreciation letter from them shortly. So.
So yeah, it's all good
I
stuff.
got it.
Are there any members of the public who wish to address the board today?
I just have a question of one of the presentations that I saw with the energy.
You can come to the podium. We need to move it out.
Hello, corner. I really love the energy savings educational program.
We'll move that out first. Sorry about that.
So you can get
I'm out from the corner now.
State your name for the board.
Oh, yeah, Madeline Collins. Hello.
Yes. And you have 5 minutes, Madeline.
Yes. I just had a quick question I like the energy savings educational program. I actually went to the one at Seed and I found it really informative. One question I had was, do you do help with co-creating curriculum? Because I do like a lot of arts programming and like for children and like putting environmental and like energy like education within the arts program would be really cool. But like finding those people and sources to help with creating that type of curriculum is really hard. And even like looking at what was at Seed, like as an adult, I could get it, but thinking about it and like, how do I put this in like an arts lens with what I do with my kids? And that way is kind of hard. So I don't know if like when I go online and request for help, can it also be like a request for like talking to someone to talk about creating curriculum that's more specific towards the art that I do with these kids?
Yeah, for sure. When it comes to the curriculum and the presentation, especially in the kids and the teen workshop, they're really kind of guided by TVA and Energy Right. So when it comes to stuff like that, what the presentation we do in the field is really kind of already set, the curriculum, the numbers, the facts, all that kind of stuff. I'm sure that if you came to us and wanted to come up with your own kind of curriculum, we would be willing to talk about that stuff. You can go on our request a speaker page and you fill out your information that gets sent to our community relations department, so they can work with you there for sure.
Awesome, thank you. That was my quick question. Thank you for the front.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Following the adjournment of this meeting, the board will have a lunch session that is open for the public to observe. This meeting is adjourned.